case. But then, of course, everything gets manipulated at some point.
Well, whether you or I or anyone listening believes in it or not, the interesting thing is that the elite do, that the people at the top do, that this occult kind of ritualistic stuff has been going on for a very long time, and they believe in it, whether you do or not, and there seems to be some real power in it. And I got super interested in this when we picked it for the podcast. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it at all, but then Matt handed me a book that changed my life forever. I never thought I'd glean so much information about a book that includes a bestiality scene that ended up changing my life.
You're very, very welcome.
Josh hasn't stopped talking about it since you read it, you guys. I'm so excited that he's actually going to talk about this because he's literally been talking about it for 5 days. So
he needs to get this out of his system.
Talk about it.
Yeah. No, I got a new hobby, and it's called sex magic. We'll break it down right after the break.
All right, Josh, bring us into sex magic.
All right, cool. So you can charge symbols. That's part of the magic of all this. It's not just creating a symbol. It's giving it life. It's giving it energy. And one way of doing that is through different rituals. And one of those rituals is sex. So Matt gave me this book called Aleister and Adolf. It's a graphic novel written by Douglas Rushkoff, which is super interesting in itself because it's this crazy book about occult magic and symbols and the power of symbols, written by a modern intellectual who's a media theorist and considered one of the great intellectuals of modern time. I don't know if that might be a little much, but he's a very well-respected guy, so why would he write this book? Like, what got him interested? What got him interested is it's based off a true story. This book is about Aleister Crowley, in a sense, who you might know is a famous occultist. People call him a Satanist, but he's actually not. He's an occultist. I don't know if I'd call him a bad guy, but I wouldn't call him a good guy. He's somewhere in between. And this book goes really into this famous story. Well, I don't know if it's famous, but a story that's supposedly true that Aleister Crowley helped create and charge the V for victory sign in World War II that Churchill started propagating and that the Allied forces started using to battle back against a swastika. And it's a story, it's a recreation of that story of how Aleister Crowley came up with the symbol and how he charged it, which is the more interesting part. So here we go. So my favorite quote actually in this is not super sexual, but at one point Crowley says this: propaganda and magic are intertwined. I thought that was fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what this book is, it starts in the future, and it starts with a graphic artist in the 90s during the internet bubble, and he's trying to create a graphic, and the graphic is he's trying to manipulate a graphic that he got, and it's two V's intertwined, and for some reason, no matter what he does, every time he saves it or prints it, the image moves, the logo moves in the paper, and he can't figure it out, and he's like, what the hell's going on? I'm going to skip a couple of details, but he searches out and tries to figure it out because he's like, I have a deadline. He ends up coming across this old guy. He ends up getting to the guy who originally created the logo. He figures it out. He finds some old film that the guy based it off of, and it's all this crazy graphic imagery and evil, dark shit. And he's like, what is all this? Really weird. So he ends up finding the guy who created this logo. He's an old guy in a hospital dying called Roberts. Now, the story, most of this book is about Roberts. I don't know how much of this is the truth. Some of it is, but it's more of a fun ride. So we go back in time when Roberts was literally, yeah. It's going to get weird. It's exciting. So, this dude Roberts...
I got my pants off already, so I'm ready to go.
Get out the loose. So Roberts was enlisted by the U.S. military to go to England to help Aleister Crowley with the propaganda war. And using magic. This guy Roberts like, all right, I'll show up over there. Roberts is like a young, innocent guy who's never had a girlfriend, never been laid, idealistic American back in whatever, like the late 30s, early 40s. So he shows up and like immediately he meets Crowley and immediately he's given abstinence and mescaline and immediately he's involved in a ritual where he where he witnesses like Crowley like having some crazy ritual on some sort of crazy symbology, having sex with some crazy hot hippie chick from the 40s, and he doesn't know what's going on. He's in and out of it, and he thinks it's all bizarre, and he doesn't know what to make of it, and he's all confused. And during this ride, he's like coming in and out of it. The book's very like it's very trippy and esoteric. He comes in and out of it, and this book is cool because they tie in characters of famous people from all these different times. And then Crowley is like also talking with Anne Fleming, who James Bond was based off of, and James Bond's boss, and like they're interacting because Crowley's trying to tell them like we need to like come up with our own symbol, and we need to charge it, and we need to like battle Hitler's symbol because Hitler has his own guy like Crowley on the other side who's like really into magic and has his own occult setup for the Nazis. So they're trying to battle sell them. It's a propaganda war. They're trying to fight against a Schwarzenegger. So he's working with the intelligence agency in England to come up with this propaganda war. So Roberts doesn't know this, but he is the initiate at first. He's the person they're going to use to power the sigil. Is that how you pronounce it? Sigil? S-I-G-I-L.
Sigil.
Yeah.
Sigil. So that's the symbol. That's the V. Crowley comes up with the V when he's walking across the room and he sees his sorcerer or the lady he has sex with all the time, laying on the floor in a position.
Sorcerer is just like a little nicer,
Sorceress.
His
I don't know.
sex lady, is that what you said?
It feels a little culty because
Okay, now for the vagine.
it feels a little gross, like it's a little culty, like you feel bad for her because it's kind of written that way. By the end, you don't though. It's really weird. So he sees her laying on the floor naked, basically in that position. It's oh, the V, the legs. He's we need to power the V, and there's more history to the V. You can go into the history of the V. He's not he didn't create the V symbol. He just wanted to charge that motherfucker and use it against a swastika.
Yeah.
So
wasn't it a Roman symbol? The V? Am I confusing that with something else? I forget. It's been a while since I read the book, but
I don't know. They do go a little into the older interpretations of it and stuff, but I don't remember. I don't know. All I remember is that one fucking page, Matt, where things get weird. So now it gets crazier. This guy's there, and they're going to do another ritual. They get him hopped up on drugs again, and he becomes part of it. They initiate him into it, and all of a sudden he's in the ceremony. There's people all around him. He's in the room. They're on a table. There's the V's below them on a cloth, and he's basically under drugs, starts having sex with this beautiful woman named Daphne, and he's a virgin, and he basically falls in love with her the moment they start banging, and he's having sex with her, and she's and they're getting really into it, and Crowley's chanting, and all this stuff's going on, and he remembers it's all crazy. He's on psychedelics, and he remembers killing a goat at one point, and he remembers slicing a goat's neck and taking the power, and he's all confused, and then the next day happens, and then after that he starts living with these people. He kind of falls in love with Daphne, which is really bizarre. It's he has sex once, he's in love, he's that type of guy. So
he's a virgin.
He's a virgin. He's couldn't believe it. So he gets kind of mad at Crowley, and he's I'm done with this. This is craziness. This is madness. I need to go help the actual war. So he goes and joins Patton on the front lines, General Patton, because this book just has every major character from the time into it. So he joins Patton on the front lines. They're going for it. He's all mad at Crowley because he doesn't think what they're doing is going to work, and he wants to go after the Spear of Destiny. What is the Spear of Destiny? So this book is also wrapped in another mythology, the Spear of Destiny, that Hitler wanted the spear or the dagger that killed Jesus Christ.
Right.
And part of the war stabbed him in the side. And this book proposes, and you can find it on the internet, that Hitler only wanted to go to war to find the spear to give himself ultimate power. So in the book, Roberts finds the spear, goes with Patton, eventually finds this spear, and brings it back to Crowley and Daphne years later. It's look, we beat the Nazis. Look, I got the spear. This is what you should have been after the whole time. And Crowley's really dismissive of him. Is you didn't need that. We just had to charge the V symbol. And that's all we need to do. And that's why the war is over. Not because you went out and killed people and found the spear. The spear had no real power. And Roberts kind of gets frustrated and starts yelling at Daphne and chases her outside. It gets a little weird. And then there's a flashback, and he's why don't you want to come with me? You're in love with me. I'm in love with you. We had a thing, and we had that initiation. I just remember you falling in love with me. And she's what are you talking about? You were so hopped up on drugs. That whole thing, really think about it. What happened? And he flashes back. So instead of him having sex with Daphne and remembering a goat getting killed, it was not that scenario. What really happened was he was banging Daphne with a goat mask on, and Roberts was getting banged by Aleister Crowley in the poop chute while he was banging Daphne while he was wearing a goat helmet.
It's a sordid little tale, it really is.
Oh my God.
So that's how they powered the V, which ultimately I guess was good because they were powering, this powerful symbol to help win the war, but it took a little bestiality butt sex to get it across the line, I guess. I don't know. Crowley, that guy fucks, dude. Quick side tangent on Crowley. That guy was nuts, man. He didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit. That guy, back in the day, he banged everyone. So he, Wilt Chamberlain was an understudy to Aleister Crowley. Crowley, he had sex with men, women, hunchbacks, dwarfs. It didn't matter. Anyone mutated. He would go after people that had real mutations and really had deformities on their bodies because he just was counter. He was counter society. He hated how uptight and Puritan that the English were. Dude, if Crowley was alive today, he'd definitely have a Pornhub channel. He would definitely be an activist or a star in some way. He's so he's beyond sex. I digress. But getting back to the end, in the end, Roberts goes mad and he gets mad at Daphne. He's like, "What do you mean, Daphne? What do you mean I was the initiation guy? I got banged in the butt like, what are you talking about?" So he kills her in a double V. He just like kills her because he wants to make it seem like Crowley did it. And then that ties into the beginning where that symbol the corporation was using of a double V that had the power that this guy originally created. That symbol was evil, but the original V was not. But the two Vs was kind of evil. So the book kind of goes into positive and negative uses of symbols and how they can be powered and how they're a little supernatural and what goes on. Anyways, I thought it was super fascinating because that is based off a real story, and charging imagery and charging things in your life with sex is considered voodoo, it's considered dark, it's considered weird, but I really researched it after the fact and like looked it up, and it's not. It's just like everything else we talk on this podcast. It's been turned on its head. Like the pentagram, like sex, ritual sex to charge something is like a occultist thing as old as time that's been used very positively, and it's not a negative thing at all. So I don't know, it might be my next hobby, sex and magic. Well, again, it's like who's using it and what's the goal, right? So it's all a human error situation. It's either for good or for evil. And that book made a good point, because the swastika is, originally came from the Buddhist symbol, which is for peace and love, right? So it's like anything can get twisted.
And they purposefully flipped it so it meant the opposite of that.
Right. But that's sex magic. I think is an interesting topic. I mean, it's just a lot of energy towards something. That's all it is. It's not because
I guess the energy that's released at the point of orgasm is supposed to be super powerful. And,
right.
And so if you're putting your intention into desires or a symbol or something like that, at the point of orgasm, I guess you're charging it, like supercharging it,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I can't wait to share with you guys when I do it.
Wait, so
be sure to take photos.
I don't know if
so wait, hold on a second. Who's going to be behind you, Josh?
Oh, that's right,
Goat man.
Yeah, I think the real question is who's going to wear the
Bigfoot.
mask. Yeah.
It's going to be Bigfoot behind him. Railed by Bigfoot.
Crowley.
It's your dream. All right, so this whole podcast got on a huge tangent, but however you feel about what's happening in America or the world, just know that everything around you, every symbol that you see, probably any advertising, marketing, company, stuff that you buy things for, Disneyland, any kind of structure you see, they're usually tapping into something invisible, and they're probably doing it out of a sake of raising power for whatever they're trying to do, but they could be manipulating you. So we just wanted to do a podcast and kind of lift the veil. That's all we wanted to do. So have a good weekend, or have a good week, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.